Well, welcome to our Gifts of God talk today on Sunday. It's partly cloudy here in Washington, and we're happy to have you with us, as always. I wanted to talk today about grace. Sandra and I received this hug from Amma, the hugging saint, here in Washington, D.C. She had not been on the road all since the pandemic. So we had seen her in 2019 and then realized, wow, that was 5 years ago. So it's been 5 years since she's come, and she hasn't really left India so much. We know some people who go to her ashram in South India, but for her being on the road and going around the world and giving people the hugs, that hasn't happened in 5 years. So when we saw that she was coming, we were on our European tour, and we arranged, right away to go and plan. And so Friday we got up really early. We jumped in our Uber, and an hour later, because it's in a suburb outside of Washington, D.C., we arrived, and then we had to wait in another line to get your little token. You get a token as to what your time is when you go up to get your hug. And that was like an hour wait, and then you sit, and then, it's like another 5-6 hours. She came in around 11 o'clock and gave what they call a satsang, which is like a talk, a short lecture. And then they play bhajans for maybe an hour, hour and a half, and she's there singing. And then they kind of honor Amma with this arti. I've never seen actually arti done to a live master, but because often we play the arti to Babaji, but he's not there in a body, right? So it seemed a little different to do a live arti to a live spiritual master, and that was interesting to watch that. And then, of course, after all that's over, she goes up on the stage a little higher, and people come up for their quintessential hug from her. And then she does that for hours and hours till everybody has received the hug. And sometimes there might be 10, 20,000 people in line that day for a hug. And how she does that, it's kind of miraculous in its own right. And she doesn't get up and go to the bathroom or take food or anything. She just totally focused on that for the whole time. And that in itself is something to witness, something to witness. And she has a very good team. I know, like you said, Donna, sometimes it seems like chaos all around there with the tables where they're selling things and all the people waiting, and then all the people on the stage, and then all the staff that's managing that whole dance, of getting the people from the seats to the line to the stage and then up to her. It's quite an operation. And I think they do it with as much fluidity as possible. And I think they do a pretty good job. A lot of those people are there just quote unquote volunteering their time. And so it's totally an act of service on their part. And I think they keep it reasonably orderly, that people can go up and receive their hug. Now, when you receive your hug, that's a whole different story. It's what my teacher Tara Singh called it, a moment outside of time. And what that is, I was writing to a friend this morning about it, and I was saying, when you think of the cosmos, there's such a great proportion of what is unknown reality, right? If you think of the cosmos and then you're trying to ponder, well, just what exactly is it? I would say 99.9999999% of it is the unknown to us. We have no idea what that is and what's out there. And well, when you enter the aura of a spiritual master, they put your mind in that unknown reality part, right? So they're connecting you to the wholeness of creation, of the cosmos, but you're so used to your little, we call it broadband, but even broadband is such a small band of that universal reality. And then when you meet a spiritual master who's in touch with that, universal reality, and they take you into that, they can transport you with just their presence alone into that space. And Tarji called it a moment outside of time, outside of space, where you're actually immersed in that cosmic field, right? You're immersed in that wholeness of everything, even if it's only for 10 seconds. But maybe 10 seconds is all we can handle, because they're living in that space, constantly. And they're introducing us to that. Grace really is what it is, our connection to ultimate reality. So when you go up and you get in their presence, in their vibration, they can draw you into that ultimate reality. And something around Amma, because she actually hugs you and takes your whole being in her arms. It's not like just, holding her hand up and giving you a blessing. And I don't even think Babaji ever, really physically hugged people. Tara Singh would occasionally, but it was usually like, you hadn't seen him in a while, or it was after a workshop, he had given a talk and people come up and they get a hug, but it was very casual. But with Amma, it's very determined, to hug 20,000 people or 10,000 people or even 1,000 people. When you think about it, with the kind of energy that it would take on her part to do that is almost mind-blowing. You can hardly even fathom it, right? So there we were. We sat in our Lyft ride, our Uber ride for an hour. Then we sat in our line to get our ticket. Then we sat in our seat to wait for her to come in. And then we listened to her talk. And then we sang the bhajans for a couple of hours. And then now it's time for us, our number comes up and now we got to go up there. So we did. And with couples, she does kind of a 3-prong hug. The one person in the couple first, then the second, and then she hugs you both together as a couple, which is kind of nice. You get extra acknowledgement for at least trying to have a holy relationship in this lifetime, So she kind of honors that. And both of us had a couple of special malas that we've been saying a lot of our mantras on lately. So I took mine up there to get it blessed, and she put it over my head, and Sandra with her functional mala that she uses a lot for the rebirthing sessions and so forth. So we got our hug, we got our double hug, and then we had our malas blessed. And then pretty much your mind is blown by then. You're kind of in a kind of an altered state, right? So we went back down and sat for a while until we could walk again without passing out. And then we got a few things from the product tables. I got a little nice mala bag from India, and Sandra got some photos. And then we said to ourselves, this is enough. We got what we came for. A lot of people stick around, and she actually gives a seminar on a couple of days. And the last time she came, we actually did stay for a couple of days and had a room there and saw her 2 or 3 times, got 2 or 3 hugs. But this time, I don't know, it was just clear we got what we needed and we got our hug, and now it's time to go home and get back to work. And so that's what we did. We, got our Uber ride back, and it was beautiful, beautiful day. But we're still in the integration of that. So last night we sat at our altar, which we often do when things come up, and Sandra's had kind of a little crick in her neck, and she went to the chiropractor and, kind of had some work done on it, but the crick is still there. So we sat in front of the altar and we were sitting quiet, and she had this reading from some book that some minister had done on grace. And we were sitting there, and unbeknownst to me, I didn't know she had this little paper on grace, right? I'm thinking about, well, it's in the evening. It wasn't really a podcast we were making, but there we were. And then these 2 lessons came to me from the Course, 168 and 169. And they're, your grace is given me, I claim it now. That's 168. And then by grace I live, and by grace I am released. That's 169. So I was sitting there, and just those 2 lessons just kept coming to me. And I thought, oh, well, maybe we should do a podcast here at the altar on at least one of them. So I had the Course there, and I opened it up, and so we did the podcast on 168. Your grace is given me, and I claim it now. So as we were reading that, we were just going deeper and deeper into this meaning of grace. What is the action? What is the actual action of the grace? And we certainly had felt like in the last couple of days, we were certainly in Amma's grace, and that was a very practical thing. It wasn't anything esoteric, And I think this is where people get a little confused when it comes with the guru if they haven't had exposure to that. They have a lot of notions about gurus that aren't true. The biggest notion that a lot of people fall into the pitfall is, when you surrender to a guru, you give your power away. And I don't want any of that cult stuff. But that is like the farthest thing from the truth of having a real guru. I wanted to just mention that first of all, a real guru never wants you dependent on them. They want you to awaken in yourself that divine connection. They want you to stand on your own feet and have that insight, have that real connection to your essence, that energy from the divine flowing to you, giving you what you need, giving you what you deserve in life, giving you essentially your own grace. And your grace is your connection to who you actually are as God created you. When you're fully in touch with that, it's like you're closer to living in this state of grace. Because first of all, you don't manufacture petty little problems that aren't there. When we're immersed in our egos and we're living in a state of undeclared fear most of the time, we manufacture a lot of adjustments, a lot of motives, a lot of things to avoid, seeing that we're in that state, and it makes up a lot of problems. And then at some point you see, well, I'm the one making up all that stuff, and I'm the one making up the problems. So you stop doing that. But then at some point you realize, well, God's will for me is perfect happiness. And in perfect happiness, there are no problems. There are no problems. You don't have anything to solve. Because there aren't things to solve. There's just reality. There's just the flow of life. It's like the oak tree doesn't have any problems. It just like seed in the ground, little sprout, gets bigger, seasons come, rain comes, cycle after cycle, there it goes, it grows. Before you know it, 100 years later, it's 100 feet tall, and it's happy as a clam, or happy as an oak tree. And it never had any problems in that whole action. Well, if an oak tree can be like that, shouldn't a human be more in touch with that quote unquote problem-free state? So that would be grace. That would be the heaven on earth state, and that's what as students of the Course in Miracles, we're actually after that. We're leaning our minds in that direction and cleaning our minds and, letting go of misperceptions, applying the forgiveness to rest upon ourselves and on all things. And in so doing, we drop all the problems, all the stress, all the whatever it is, all the unhappiness. We drop all that because we see, well, we've been given everything we need to put ourselves in this awareness of the perfect happiness. And it's kind of a laid out course. And as long as we're going in that direction, we notice our life is getting better and better and happier, fewer problems, more grace, more fun per hour, more happiness, and more effectiveness as a human being, making an impact on the people around us. No man is an island, as John Donne said, and that our interaction with the people around us is meaningful. It's uplifting them and it's uplifting us, and our life is more and more like that. So I think that's the walk that we're walking. That's the talk that we're talking, but are we walking it? And I think after a while, you do see that you're being consistent. You're being consistent with the talk. You're walking the talk. And it's actually harder to not walk the talk than to actually walk the talk, because you have to struggle a lot to pretend, and you don't have to struggle at all to just do it, to just be there with it. And that's what I think I really notice about Amma. She's so relaxed. She's so, it's just like she's a flow of divine nectar, she's just a flow of liquid love just coming in the room, and she has an assessment of everyone, and she comes so gracefully in and just almost floats up on the stage, and then when she's there and she's sitting when she was singing the bhajans, she would go into like ecstasy, like she'd say a line and it would be like all of a sudden she like heard what it was, and like, and then she'd sing another line and it would be like, she'd just be in this kind of ecstatic absorption of what the bhajan was actually saying, right? What the words were actually saying. She was realizing them in herself and being inspired herself by what we were all singing, and that was kind of, I'd never seen her quite do it like that, but maybe she was just putting on a show for me. I don't know, but she was going into such ecstasy singing these bhajans. And it's much, how I feel sometimes in the mantra breathes while I'm sitting there watching you guys breathe and I'm listening to the mantras, and there's so much joy and there's so much like yearning to give that joy, and that's what Amma is. She's just pure joy, yearning to give that joy to everyone in the room, and hoping that they can all receive it, and that reception, when you do receive that bit of her joy, it's like she's giving you grace, and that's like a little light. It's like her grace is lighting a little light, and then that flame is lit in you, and she knows that flame is just going to get brighter and brighter, and your grace is going to increase and increase, and then it's up to you. It's up to you to keep the flame burning, just like it's up to us. A lot of people say, oh yeah, I studied the Course in Miracles 20 years ago and I thought it was a good book. Well, okay. If you haven't kept up in the 20 years, then what good book was it? And what's it going to take for you to wake up? If it didn't wake you up then, and you're just like in awe of the miraculousness of it, and you just, because of that, it becomes your lifestyle, then did it really even have an impact on you, right? So it's like, this, Donna, once you find your master, your teacher, there's no going back. Like, you don't say, well, yeah, I had a guru when I was in my 20s, and then I went on, did this, that, and that. And no, once you meet that encounter with infinity, which these people who are spiritual masters are in touch with, once you have that encounter with that, there's no going back. Like you're awakened and you're lit, and the fire will not go out, especially if you keep giving it attention. So the same with the Course. It's like, once you really get what it is. Now, when I say get what it is, it's a little bit different kind of a thing. It is a teacher, it is a guru, but it's just a guru without a body, It doesn't have a physical body that goes along with it, but it's just as much of Christ's presence as if you were to go and meet Amma in the flesh, It's just as much that of the Christ encountering the Course. And if you really see that truth, then you're in it for life, and you would never go back, and you would never put it aside and say, oh yeah, I read that 20 years ago and it was a good book. And no, it would be, it undoes all other books, just like a teacher like Amma undoes all other teachers. And, fortunately, Sandra and I, we've met a few very enlightened beings in our life. And I think my tutelage with Tara Singh, it was, good for the reason that he had teachers in his life that had transformed him. And when he formed his foundation, he wanted to make sure that those teachers were honored in a good way. Not only the teachers he had in the flesh, but the teachers he had from his culture, from his background. And he had those beings in this prayer room all around the room. And there were maybe a couple dozen of them, right? So what that did for me was it said, you know, you can get your wisdom from many different beings. There aren't a whole lot of them. I mean, when you think about the 24 gurus he had pictures of, those are over periods of thousands of years, right, of human history. So, you know, in maybe 5,000 years, we can only produce a couple dozen, you know, but nevertheless, they're there. Nevertheless, they're there. And they were kind of in the presence of the Christ, because that was his main job, to present the Course in Miracles, of course. So Christ was front and center, along with Dr. Shukman and Krishnamurti, who were his teachers. But he had all these other beings, enlightened beings around. So you really got this energy of almost like a pantheon, you know, like a special, almost like a like, you know, modern day Valhalla, you know, it was just like full of these great beings. And I was very moved by that. So I have no trouble studying the Course, having Amma as our teacher in that Divine Mother energy. You know, when we say Divine Mother, I mean, we've got Amma sitting there on our Divine Mother altar, right? And we also honor Mary and all the Divine Mother energies. But as far as having a physical teacher, Amma is pretty much it for us in that Divine Mother department. And that's okay. But then we also have the Course in Miracles with Jesus, and we also have Babaji that Sandra met in the flesh. So we have no trouble with, quote, the multiple guru system. I know that goes against some people's belief that you should only have one guru, but I think from our standpoint, the multiple guru system works for us. And that's what we teach, and that's what we'll continue to teach and be inspired by, with certain emphasis. You know, Sandra will always emphasize Babaji. I will always emphasize the Course in Miracles, because those were the crux of what transformed us. You know, so yeah. So that's our form of grace. And I think that what was clear to me in this talk last night at the altar was that grace can solve a lot of problems that maybe we're not asking it to solve, but we could be, you know, we could be asking. And if we were to ask, it's kind of like, you know, the burden of proof is on the other side now. Like, until you ask, it's your job, right? You got to ask for the grace to come in. You say, okay, this is my problem. These are my thoughts that I've made up this problem. I hand them at your feet at this altar of truth. And now I ask for the grace to help me unravel all this and be free. Well, that's your job. But then once you do that, it's like the job is now on the other side. Like, okay, well, now the Holy Spirit has to come through and give you the miracles and give you the grace and make the possibilities open for the shift, whatever that is, you know, depending on what the issue is. You know, it could be a health issue, could be a relationship issue, could be anything, anything that's giving you stress or, any little bit of conflict or what have you. That's where you need to apply the grace. And we have to ask for it. And we have to be real specific in that asking. Not so much specific in the details of how it's going to come about, but very specific in our request. Okay, this is the issue, this is my request, and this is where I need the help, and this is where I need the grace in this department, and be very well defined about that. So yeah, after this European tour, Sandra was having this little crick in her neck, and she had some chiropractic, but it still didn't get down to it. And so that's what we're working on right now. We're working on that kind of spinal area, and we're asking for grace to come into that and help us and heal us. And, that's a lot easier for me than going to an MD who's going to tell you you've got this disease or that disease or whatever. And I'd just rather not give them the power over me like that. I would rather keep it a bit, I don't want to say undefined, because certainly a pain in your neck is very defined, right? But I want to have more of my own dominion over what I'm going through in my body and what I choose to do in response to that. And I don't like giving my power away to some other system, be it scientific or otherwise. So anyhow, we're working with grace. And then when I read that last night, let me see if I can find that line. It was talking about your problems being more or less over. Let me just see if I can find that. Okay, workbook 168. Yeah. Yeah, it says, if you but knew the meaning of his love, meaning God's love for us, hope and despair would be impossible. For hope would be forever satisfied, despair of any kind unthinkable. His grace, his answer is to all despair, for in it lies remembrance of his love. Would he not gladly give the means by which his will is recognized? His grace is yours by your acknowledgement, and memory of him awakens in the mind that asks the means of him whereby its sleep is done. Today we ask of God the gift he has most carefully preserved within our hearts, waiting to be acknowledged. This, the gift by which God leans to us and lifts us up, taking salvation's final step himself. All steps but this we learn, instructed by his voice, but finally he comes himself and takes us in his arms and sweeps away the cobwebs of our sleep. His gift of grace is more than just an answer. It restores all memories the sleeping mind forgot, all certainty of what love's meaning is. God loves his Son. Request him now to give the means by which this world will disappear. Now, that's the line. The means by which this world will disappear. Okay, so now, the world would be our problem, wouldn't it? Whatever that is, health problem, relationship problem, body problem, mental problem, any problem. that's put us in conflict, despair, concern. That's quote unquote our world. And now, what's the purpose of the grace? It says, purpose of the grace is to disappear that world, whatever that is. So that would mean, well, grace would have to be the ultimate medicine for anything, even going on in your body. Like if you were really in touch with the grace would alter the course of your cells, and put you back in a balanced state, whatever that is, whatever that original cellular balance is in whatever area in your body that has the issue. So I was seeing this, I don't know, I got kind of a new vision of the power of this grace that it's talking about. We were sitting there at the altar. Oh, and we have also some other friends, clients who are going through some serious health issues right now. One of our clients had these operations that were more elective, cosmetic operations, and they caused some damage. And then now she's in the aftermath of whatever that damage was, right? And now to repair that, she's been in a lot of pain as a result. And this has been going on for a few years now. And she finally found some help in the medical world that can correct some of these things. But at the same time, she found this doctor who we think is pretty enlightened, and he said, look, you're going to have to really ask the higher powers to help you. I'm going to do the operation, but we have to kind of bind that together with your spiritual work that you're doing, and that together we can make some progress. But you really need your meditations and your other things you're doing along with it. Now, do you know how rare it is to find a medical doctor that would say something like that? So anyhow, she's getting the treatments and they're actually working, and they're relieving her of some of this pain that she's had for a number of years now. So she's been a very close, client and student of ours in the last year. And so we're kind of keeping close tabs with her, and she's kind of like helping us realize the power of grace. And so it's interesting, lately the Course has been telling us that you can't enter heaven by yourself. You have to bring somebody with you. And she's kind of one we're sort of walking hand in hand with right now. And it's been beautiful, this journey together with her. And like this next section in the text, we haven't done a podcast on it, but I've been looking at it. It's called Entering the Ark. The Ark, and it makes reference to Noah's Ark when he put all the animals on the Ark, and he said, well, they all have to come in 2 by 2. And, he fills the Ark with, 2 by 2. And then this is saying the same thing. You're entering this Ark of heaven, and you cannot come through the door without a friend along. It's like it's a 2 by 2 venture. You have to bring somebody with you. You cannot enter it by yourself. So that means, well, we can't come with grievances, judgments. We have to totally be walking together without all those, mental conundrums. We have to be walking in harmony, and we have to bring somebody along with us. So that's very clear, this next section. I'm looking forward to the podcast on it. But it's been indicating that all along, too. I think in this last Obstacles to Peace, the fear of God, it was saying, well, there's a veil, and behind the veil is your brother, who's actually the Christ, and you have to remove the veil and see your brother for who he really is, which is the Christ. So it's been getting us ready for this, this part in the text where we're almost ready for God to make that last step. But is there anybody in your life you still hold a grievance toward? Because that would be the one who's on the other side of the veil. And until you join with them, God can't make the last step of grace. But I think we're all very close to that. I feel it. It's like this last hug with Amma, I felt so connected to that state, that state of grace, not just from getting the hug, but the whole being in her presence. The whole thing was grace, even the Uber ride over there, we were supposed to go really early with this friend of ours who lives in our building, and she's one of the senator's aides, right? The senator from Alaska she works for. And we've got to know her very well. We actually met her at Babaji's ashram in India. So anyhow, she was supposed to come with us to Amma. And we said, okay, well, yeah, we got to get up early and leave by 7 because you got to wait in this line to get your token. And if you don't get an early one, you could be you could be getting your hug at 6 p.m. at night. So we got to get there early when the first group comes. All right, fine. Yeah, no problem. I'll see you at 7. Well, 7 o'clock comes around. She's not there. We go up to her apartment. We knock on her door. Not there. She doesn't answer. Then we said, well, our Lyft ride's coming. Our Uber ride's coming. We got to go down. And so we went down to the lobby. I called on the phone. I finally got through to her. Oh, I slept through my alarm. Okay, fine. For us, that's like uber important. That would be like going to meet the Queen of England. You just don't miss those meetings, right? But what I noticed in myself, I had no judgment. I had no reaction. I just said to Sandra, well, we can't wait. We have to go. So I told her, look, we can't wait. The car's here. The Uber had already arrived. We can't wait for you, to shower and all that. We're going. So that was it. And I let go of it. I had no judgment about it at all. I didn't have an attack thought. I didn't say to her, oh, you really messed up. No, I just said, no worries. We'll get the hug for you when we're there. We'll get it for you. So don't worry about it. I just let it off. Whereas maybe in the past, I would have had a reaction like, oh, we went to a lot to set this up and get you on board. And I think it would have been her first hug from Amma. But I noticed I wasn't, I just let it go. And it wasn't a big deal. And we went on by ourselves and had what we were supposed to have. So I think that's another part of the grace. We are going to be sent some tests to see how neutral we actually are. And that's where we have to be. We have to be total non-reaction. No reaction to anything. No reaction. And it just is what it is. Let all things be exactly as they are. That's that lesson 268, I think. Let all things be exactly as they are. And don't have a reaction about anything. Sandra had this teacher, Muniraj, who took over when Babaji left his body. And Muniraj, his name actually means king of silence. Muni Raj is king, Muni is silence, king of silence. And he was one of the purest beings I had ever met. And he never had a reaction to anything. And Sandra was saying, one time he was receiving a massage from someone, and there was a storm that came up, and this storm had blown over a tree, and the tree fell on the roof in the building where he was having the massage. And the massage person told Sandra later, I was working on his body, and when the tree fell through the roof, his body had no jerk, no reaction, no whatsoever. It didn't have, even on the physical level, if something happened like that, we would start, or he said with Muniraj, there was absolutely no reaction. He was calm through the whole thing. And it was just happening in the next room, this crash. Muniraj just stayed calm the whole time. And that's where we need to be. And I'm sure Amma would be the same. She has no reaction to anything. And she's in that stillness of the peace of God. The stillness of the peace of God is mine. The stillness of the peace of God is mine. And she's in that all the time. She never deviates. She never goes out of that state. And that is the grace. That is the grace. Well, and it's also the cosmic field, this cosmic unknown reality that I was saying when I first started. There's the cosmos, and there's so little band of it that we know, and there's such a immense part of it we don't know, and that's the unknown reality. Well, that's where the spiritual masters abide all the time. And when they're in that, what me worry? Why would I react to anything? It's all perfect, it's all perfect in a state of grace. And that's where they live. They live in that state of grace. And fortunate we are to have the contact with them. And fortunate we are to have A Course in Miracles, who is the Christ in that state, telling it to us in words, but it's the same energy. He just does it with words, that's all. But they all have that brightness, that aura of truth around them. And when we make contact with those true words, we get the grace. We get the grace. And we can go to that ever-flowing spring anytime and receive it. It's like we thirst, and our thirst is quenched by this ever-flowing spring of true words. And that's what a blessing. And what a blessing that they're in English, and we know English, and they're in their original form in English. Yeah. So, well, I think that's about it. I think you get what I mean, that we need to ask for the grace. We know it's there, but are we actually invoking it, asking for it, using it to quote unquote solve our problems? Because it can if we ask, but we have to ask, and not, I'm not saying don't use alternative means. We went to the chiropractor because that's what you do when you got a pain in the neck. But, there may be limitations to those systems. And there's no limitation to grace. And it's like that part of the great unknown reality that has so much power that we haven't even tapped into. And if we're looking in that direction to tap into it, who knows what it can accomplish in us and around us. Obviously, Amma has tapped into it. When you see her operation and the millions of dollars in humanitarian projects she has around the world, and they don't just give the Nobel Peace Prize to any old person, and she's received that, and she just does her work with such humility and regularity and stamina. There's got to be something behind that, right? There's got to be. So she gives us a vision of what that is, and fortunate are we to have the eyes to see it. Not all people would have the eyes to see it or the ears to hear it. Tara Singh used to say, all the time, do you have the ears to hear? Do you have the ears to hear? Whenever it came to something that the Course was trying to tell us, or something he was trying to tell us, do you have the ears to hear? And he'd say, oh, probably not. Probably not. And then we'd be like, oh yeah, what do I do to get the ears to hear? I see, I don't have the ears to hear. I've made so many deviations. But he knew we didn't have the ears to hear, but if you don't know you don't have the ears to hear, you can't correct it. So he would point that out, we would see it, and then we would come back with more attention, more intention, more reverence, more having the ears to hear. It's something we develop, having the ears to hear. When you first start reading the Course, you scratch your head and you say, what the heck is it trying to tell me? And it's just like a foreign language. You don't have the ears to hear it. And then the more you stick with it, the more it starts making sense. And then you see, wow, I really do have grievances to just about everybody. And that's preventing me from seeing who they are. And then you start, wow, it's telling me the truth about me. And you start to listen, and then you start to undo, and it starts to unravel things, and you stick with it, and more gets unraveled. And then before you know it, you leave a marriage for 30 years, and there you are with Sandra Ray traveling around the world. How did that happen? Well, it was 20 years of waking up, having the ears to hear. Yeah. Well, thank you. I feel a lot of grace coming from you today. And thank you for being here. You make this possible. And I never know what's going to come out of me, but at least I have an audience that can invite it. And then it does. So thank you for being my audience. And I appreciate you. And the next lesson, by grace I live, by grace I am released, by grace I give, by grace I will release. So that's where people like Amaji are. She gives the grace to release people. And that's where we will be when we receive the grace, and then we give it, and then the people around us receive it, and that increases our grace. Yeah. All right. Well, God bless you all, and thanks for being here.